Okay, my friends, here it is. The video that is going to show you everything that I use for pest repellency in the garden. And I have massive success utilizing these techniques. These plants and these little tips and tricks that I'm going to show you are so effective that if you understand how to use them properly, you will have no need for any type of pesticide. Not even the natural ones like the JDOM herbal solution that we make on this channel. You won't even need that anymore. I rarely use any of that stuff. The only ones besides these plants are the Ultimate Slug Solution and the Bacillus thuringiensis, which we will talk about later. So let us get right into it. I'm going to show you exactly what plants I use and how. And then at the end, I will tell you something that I guarantee you're not expecting to be one of the most effective things against grasshoppers. So in the pest repellency world, there is one plant that stands above all others as far as just a general pest repellence and pollinator attraction. And that would be the marigold. Okay, so I have saved seeds for many years for the marigolds, from the biggest and the best, or the dwarfs, or the healthiest. It's always the healthiest. So, but they don't really have a name anymore. They're just the marigolds that I use. But I plant so many different kinds. Remember, guys, as far as pest repellency, the key is diversity. Plant the widest diversity of things that you can. And so we plant many different kinds of marigolds. Now, here is a really good one, the crackerjack marigold. Now, this is the kind that will get about 3 to 4 feet tall. 4 feet is kind of pushing it, but these will get nice and big with real big blooms. Very beautiful. They make long-lasting cut flowers. Great for pest repellency, but you have to plan accordingly because the crackerjack marigold and also the orange Hawaii marigold, they get big. So you have to not let them shade things out. All right. Now here's one I'm trying for the first time this year. It's going to be like a medium-sized marigold. So I will let you guys know how that goes. But the dwarf marigolds, guys. So you have to plan accordingly though. So you would plant the crackerjack marigolds on the sort of the north side or like the outside because they're going to get kind of tall. But the dwarf marigolds you can plant along the aisles. You know, you can plant on the south side of things because they don't get very tall. So it's good to use a combination of both of them. So here is another fantastic pest repellent crop that I plant. Now, it is only the end of February, so don't worry. I didn't actually start this basil to plant outside. This is just for eating right now. And so basil, guys, all different kinds of basil have amazing pest repellent qualities, and they plant well with other plants, especially tomatoes. They're gentle on other plants. And so you can plant basils all up in the mix, different kinds of basils. This is a classic Genovese basil, which is really kind of pungent and strong with the licorice sort of smell. One of my favorites though to plant around is the lime basil, guys. The lime basil and lemon basil, but for sure the lime smells and tastes like Skittles or Starburst, except of course natural. I mean, it is so fruity and so delicious to make tea with, all kinds of good stuff. Mega pest repellency, okay, from the basils. Now, there's also several other kinds of basils. Cinnamon basil, I'm actually growing this year that I've never grown before, so we're gonna see. But all the basil, like the marigolds, there's so many different kinds, but they all sort of function the same way. So play around and find what you like the most. These, the Thai sweet and the Siam Queen Thai basils, these I love in stir fries. Pad ka prao, is that what the pork dish is that we make with actual holy basil? All right, so this is another one that is really beneficial. It doesn't taste anything like actual other basils. This is Tulsi. This is a totally different thing. So play around with the basils, guys. And now here's a large leaf Italian variety that I'm also going to play around with this year. But again, they all sort of function the same. Now, here's another one is sage, guys. If you can start the sage up. Now, remember, this is a perennial though. It will come back year after year. So if you can do it as an annual, but it won't winter kill. Even in zone 5 here, it will survive several years. I mean, many years. And so you want to plan accordingly with this one. Now, here's one of my favorites because I use it to make bone broth at the end of the year, and that is going to be the rosemary. Now, this came from a dead stalk that was outside, yes, because it got very cold this winter, but sometimes it overwinters. But the Rosemary is wonderful. It's a kind of a woody shrub, and it has a real odoriferous, resinous sort of pine tree kind of scent and flavor, and pests do not mess with it. And so you can plant it right up in the mix of everything else, and that will give you the greatest success. Another one that we love is the oregano, guys. And oregano can be, if you get the right kind, it will be a perennial. It will keep coming back year after year. And it also self-seeds pretty easily. So oregano is a wonderful thing. But guys, if you've never started oregano from seed, it is like dust. I mean, the oregano seeds are like dust. And you just sprinkle them on the soil surface and water it in. Don't do anything else. Just kind of pat it in there and it's good to go. So really easy to start from seed. You can plant it all over the place because it's not really invasive. It's not a problem, as opposed to this plant. So guys, mint. Yes, I've been saving this mint. I know a couple of them are dead, but I've been saving cuttings of cuttings of cuttings since the fall time for this specialty mint that I want to plant back outside. But mint is a wonderfully powerful pesticide plant. But the biggest drawback with mint is going to be that it will just grow and grow and grow. So if you plant it like out into the actual garden area, then you're going to end up pretty much with a mint garden, because it will just grow and grow and grow by runners. You know, it sends runners under the soil and then pops back up. And so it's wonderful, and it's easy to control. It's not like a morning glory where it will just totally suffocate everything else that it comes in contact with. But you have to prepare for that. So it's best to give mint. Here's the best way to use mint. Grow it in its own secluded area and then chop and drop. You know, use it as like a mulch sometimes if you're having issues, or when you see the caterpillar moth, you put it around the base of plants. That can be a really good way to use it without it becoming too invasive. Although we have like 6 different kinds of mint now, 6, 7, 8 different kinds of mint, and they are all super delicious in teas. All summer long, we're making teas and juices with the mint. So good. Along those same lines is going to be the chamomile. Guys, especially if you get the chamomile harvesting tool, like the one that I showed in one of the shorts this year, makes it super easy to harvest huge amounts of chamomile. Chamomile is a wonderful pest repellent crop, and it's beautiful, and it makes one of the most divine teas that you could imagine. So this, oh, it just smells like wild mountain flowers and honey and apples. It smells like apples. Like, oh, sweet apples. It is so delicious and easy to plant. So when we plant this stuff out, all I'm going to do is take some of these seeds and sprinkle the dust on the earth, and it will grow. It is literally that easy. Okay, so next up in the line of pest repellent plants is things in the allium family. All right, so look, now many people don't know this. All right, listen, if you have onions that are going like this, like some of them are, although 95% of them are still rock solid in the basement, some of them will start to do this. Okay, these are last year's onions that we harvested in the fall, in the late summer. And you can take this and you can plant these around in your garden strategically as a pest repellent. Now, an onion is a biennial, meaning the first year it produces its vegetative growth and the bulb, but then the second year, its only purpose in life is to produce seed. So it will shoot up a stalk and put down roots and then start to flower. And they're real beautiful flowers as well. It looks like a snowball, disco ball, chandelier, super beautiful. And they attract wonderful pollinators. Also, they are wonderful at pest repellents due to their high levels of sulfuric compounds. That's what makes it nice and pungent to our eyes. So you can take these and plant them around. Now, another good benefit is that that's how you actually save seeds from your onions, is that you take whatever onions you have, plant them back outside in about another month, in about the middle of April, and then you will get seeds from them. Save seeds, and that will be your seeds for the next year. Now, another thing that most people don't realize is that in the springtime, yes, you can plant garlic. You can. I did it many years. And so the thing is, it won't be quite as big as the fall planted garlic, but here's how you can do it. If you want to utilize it for a pest repellency, you can break the cloves apart and place them strategically. You don't have to have a big crop of garlic, although you could. but you just break the cloves apart and place them strategically throughout the garden, and they will grow up and you will get escape from it if it's a hardneck garlic like this. And they have great pest repellent properties, and you will get garlic if you spring plant it. Don't worry. You can go to the organic store right now and get some organic garlic, plant it out into the soil, and you will still get garlic. Okay, next thing in the same line of the family is going to be the green onions, okay? So guys, these are actually green onions that I have started. Now, for many years I had the king green onions, but I totally redid the whole garden this year and tilled in everything, made beds, you'll see the whole renovation coming up. But so I had to start them over, but I couldn't find the king green onion anymore. So the closest second, I do believe, is these ishikura onions, and they are big, hearty green onions. Now, these things are going to be wonderful because we will take these and we will plant these around the garden strategically. All right. And so they're not really invasive. I mean, they do multiply. They definitely will multiply, but not that much. It's not like mint or morning glories or something like that that will just overtake so many things. So these things, and guys, links in the description. If you want these Bootstrap Farmer trays, this whole system is amazing. I mean, ever since I got it, I've not been looking back. These things are amazing, built to last. You'll have them many, many years. Links are in the description if you want them. And so these things are easy to plant around. When you plant them like this, you can just place them where you want them. You can direct sow them, of course, it does work, but this allows for a lot more strategic placement of the crops. And it's the same with the basil, okay? It allows for a lot more strategic placement of the crops. And these are the 2x2 pots, all right? But for most things, you can get these trays of 32 to a pack, and any of these flowers, any of this other stuff, all these marigolds, this is how I start all of those. All those things you just saw, this is how I start them. The chamomile, everything. This is all the soil that you will need is in these Bootstrap Farmer trays, or whatever other thing that you're utilizing of similar size. Okay, so now we come to a class of plants that are took me a couple of years to understand their real purpose, and these are trap crop plants. But listen guys, trap crop plants are designed to attract the certain pest, but then be removed from the garden. That's the part that a lot of people don't understand, including myself until a few years ago. So two trap crops. And remember guys, once you learn how to utilize these plants, you don't actually need to have every single other plant. You can just learn how to strategically utilize these dozen or so types of plants that I've showed you in this video. That's all you will need, okay? But two trap crops are the nasturtiums, all right? And these are the Alaska tall trailing nasturtiums. Most people don't realize that most of those nasturtiums don't actually vine that much. They're for like container growing. They'll vine a little bit, but if you want those big trailing nasturtiums that get like 10 feet long and that are real picturesque, real cottage, look with their pastel flowers, the whole plant is edible as well. So, but you'll see that they will be overtaken by aphids. I mean, there are lots of aphids on these things, but fortunately, once it gets established, the tall trailing Alaska, okay, the tall trailing, you got to get that one. These get like 10 feet. It's the only type of nasturtium I know that will grow this vigorously. So you will take it, and then once you see it's like coated in black from all the aphids and things, then you can just chop it and compost it, and it will grow right back, no problem. Now, another crop that you can do that with are calendula. Calendula could almost be considered invasive. I mean, but not really. But seriously, I mean, these things grow so easily. You just take their petals and you sprinkle them out, okay? And so this will be the calendula, and I like to select for the deep orange. So I save seeds from the deep orange, although you never need to save seeds. They're the first thing that pops up by itself in the garden. But like I said, I redid the whole garden this year, so I wanted to make sure that I had the ones I want. These are a trap crop. They will attract tons of aphids and other pests, but you need to remove them. And so both of these crops, what makes them good trap crops is that, one, they attract the pest, And two, when you remove it, the plant recovers really easily. If you did that with some of these slower growing things like the chamomile and stuff like that, then it wouldn't recover in time. But these trap crops will recover no problem. Okay, so as promised, here is the thing that is going to maybe shock you, but one of the best pest repellent options for grasshoppers is to buy you a bag or a couple of bags, and I'll put a link in the description, of the praying mantis larva. Okay, so I know some people are going to have something to say about it. Oh, they're not native and all that stuff, but it works. Okay, and you're utilizing these insects and you're giving them a home. So several years ago, and I made a short about it, I think a couple of years ago, and I bought 2 or 3 of the bags of 1,500 praying mantises, and I let them out in the garden, and they exploded everywhere. And then now I see praying mantis cocoons all over the place, and I have not had to get them again. There's just praying mantises all over, and they eat the grasshoppers. I mean, they seriously, I'll watch them hunt, and they'll sit there and just bam, get a grasshopper and mow down on it. So that is one of the best grasshopper controls, is having more praying mantises in your garden. Also ladybugs. I've also done the same with ladybugs. If you have a mite or aphid infestation, you can get the sacks of ladybugs. I'll put links in the description to the ones that I used as well. So there you go, guys. If you found something useful, then give it a thumbs up. Also share the video with anyone that will find this information useful. Every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time, we have a live Q&A right here.